Boom! What up, ladies and gents? We're back with another one. Look, if your business is not creating content on social media, you are invisible. No matter how much you feel you aren't, nobody can find you. And if you want to solve that problem, then this episode's for you. Let's get this one on the road. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone, because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Right, ladies and gents, our guest today is a seasoned entrepreneur and branding specialist with a wealth of experience in sales, Instagram, and all things personal and business branding. Get ready to learn the full suite of services that you need to take your brand to new heights, including Instagram growth, lead generation, PR and media, advertising, web and app development. And there's more. So put your thinking cap on, grab your notebook, and let's get ready to welcome to the show the one and only Mr. Joe McCarthy. Now the party can start. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Love that intro.
Dude, if you ain't having fun on social, then what the hell are you doing it for, right?
Exactly, dude. Yep.
All right, man, let's jump into this thing. Let's just go with the basics. Everybody wants to know, how do I make my business stand out? How do I get more followers, more likes? But ultimately, how do I increase my sales, get more conversions? So can you walk us through the process that you use for creating a successful brand?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, you can talk about, like the detailed stuff, like, color themes, reels, high hashtags, all kinds of different things. But I like to focus a lot on more of like the mentality or like the mindset type stuff. Because a lot of people, I feel like they get wrapped up in their heads. They don't even really know, who their market is. They don't know why they're posting on social media. They don't know who their target is. And they end up just kind of, doing what everyone else is doing, not really realizing that, you burn out from that. You're not really passionate, and then at the end of the day, it's like I said, you kind of like burn out. So I feel like focusing on like figuring out why you're doing it, figuring out who your actual avatar is, who your ideal client is, who you want to help, solidifying those foundations, I think, is like the beginning, right? Like, most people, they just go right into content creation, or they go right into trying to post content without setting those like fundamentals. So that would be like,
dude, the whole idea of just creating content right off the bat without really going into the customer avatar, that's what I was guilty of, dude. When we first started the show, it was like, hey, we're going to create a podcast just to, maybe sell more houses later down the road. I started interviewing real estate agents, and then really quick, I realized, how am I going to sell houses to real estate agents? That just it ain't going to work. I'm targeting the wrong type of person. So let's kind of niche down a little bit, and let's talk about the mistakes. You mentioned that one of them is we start off not really knowing our customer avatar. What are some of the other common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make when it comes to their brand? I'm sure it starts off with a logo, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously you want to make sure you have a good logo, but I would say another thing is they don't have good content, or they're almost posting stuff that they think is great, right? Like, you might think you have the best content in the world, but you don't put yourself in the, client's shoes or the consumer's shoes. So like, you want to kind of put yourself in their shoes, figure out like what's something that would catch their eye, what's something that would entertain them. And I think a lot of people, they just end up posting stuff that they want to post, not necessarily realizing that 98% of other people may not find it interesting, and that's why your engagement might suck, right? So I think figuring out like what your client or what your ideal avatar actually likes to see is what you need to figure out. And I would say another thing is like providing value. Like, I think a lot of people put out content just willy-nilly. Like, they might post their dog or their piece of pizza or whatever on social media. It's like, people don't really want to see that. They want to have some kind of incentive to check out your page, to follow, to engage. And that almost always comes down to value. So you want to make sure you're providing value and that you're giving, your client an incentive to stick on, follow, and engage, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And you kind of mentioned the mistake of like not being able to kind of continue to do this, right? They don't have a plan to go forward. Maybe they don't know their customer avatar. Maybe they're just creating willy nilly, cat videos or whatever, not really speaking to that audience. So how do you get a client to speak to that particular avatar, that client avatar that you're looking for? And then B, to remain consistent, because I can do it one
Yeah.
time and post a video, but how do you stay consistent talking to that audience or to that avatar that you're hoping to connect with over a long period of time?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's like a short-term thing. It's not something you might not come up with it overnight. It might take a week, it might take a month. I like personally kind of wrote down and journaled, right? Like figuring out like why do I want to help young men, young entrepreneurs. I would say a lot of times people actually want to help people in their similar situation, right? So like if you're, a single mom and you want to help people with e-commerce business or whatever it is, maybe you want to help people because you wish you had someone like that. So I'd say a lot of times that's typically what happens. But kind of just sitting down, journaling, like don't just like rush into it and just say, I want to help, 30-year-old men in fitness or something, just because that's like the popular thing to do. You want to make sure that you're doing it because it's something that you're at least somewhat passionate about. Because if you don't have a little bit of spark or passion in what you're doing or what you're posting, that's when lack of consistency comes up, right? Like you can get in this role of posting content and then you go like, 5 months without posting. And obviously, number one, that's not going to help you get sustainable clients, and it's going to screw with the algorithm. So at the end of the day, like that's not going to be sustainable for your clients, for your business, for engagement, social media. So lack of consistency also, comes from not being passionate about what you're doing and what you're posting. So if that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, and it's funny because we start the way we tend to have similar business models, you and I, and one of the ways we help overcome that is using a podcast. Whether you start your own podcast about something that you're passionate about, so that you can consistently make that content. But secondarily, it's because if we have clients that come on board and they don't really know how to talk behind a camera, or they're not comfortable with their voice or how they look, and they're struggling to talk about their business in different ways, we literally interview them and create a long form piece of content that we can then turn around and utilize for social media strategies. What are you doing with your clients? How do you help your clients kind of get over the hurdle of, I don't have any content? Because we talk to coaches, we talk to marketing agencies, we talk to people who do run ads, and the biggest problem they have is they can bring on a client who knows they need to create stuff. They just have nothing created. So how do you help them overcome that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two things to that. Like, number one is usually they give the excuse of they don't have enough time. So like we very strictly like you want to spend, at least an hour or two on like a Saturday. You want to time block it so that you have it in your schedule. And we teach them how to actually batch content. Like that was a huge key for me because I remember I just randomly shoot a video and it would take me like 2 hours to edit. Then I would do it like the next day, then the next day, and that's just a total pain in the butt, right? So like what we've taught them is to kind of batch their content, spend like a whole day or even, just a few hours. Like I can get 10 videos shot within, 2 or 3 hours or even less. And now I have that full weeks or that even full months worth of content already created. So I would say batch content, get super strict with your schedule. Cause a lot of times, like I said, the reason people don't put out the content is because they think they don't have enough time, when in reality it's more of like a priority thing, right? So if you can put it on the chart, make it like a priority, you're going to get it done. And then I guess the second thing would be mindset. Again, like you said, a lot of people, they're scared to put themselves in front of camera. They're scared of what people think about them. Is this going to flop? Do people actually like this? Am I even going to reach anybody? So the second thing is mind to kind of going back to the actual foundation, which is like, why am I doing this? Who is my client avatar? Why do I want to help them? I think that helps a lot with mindset. And then if you go through a lot of my content, you'll see I'm big into just taking action. Like you're not going to get your first or even second video perfect on the first try, right? Like you're gonna have to post content. Now, obviously, as you continue, posting videos, as you continue putting out pieces of content, it's gonna get better. You're gonna get more confident. So at the end of the day, I think if you just take action, make the first step, put out that video, even if you think it's awful, you need to start somewhere. And the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to get good at it.
Oh, dude, it is so tough to like have some of those creative things when people are just not used to doing that. What we have now, especially in this last couple months, with things like ChatGPT, Google
Yeah.
just announced that Bard is about to come out here very soon, which is Google's form of AI. A lot of those platforms are giving us the tools necessary to have some of this creativity to create content. Shoot, in some cases, you don't even have to put yourself behind camera anymore. You can have
Yeah.
it all done for you. How is that going to affect your business, our business, and how we're talking to customers when it comes to having AI as a tool or even as a complete service?
hmm Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you might think it's a little scary, but honestly, I see it as kind of like a big opportunity. Like you said, you can write, a whole like book, with ChatGPT. It's super insane, and you could get content ideas from them. I mean, literally any question you want answered within 2 seconds, they're going to give you like stuff from, millions worth of information, and you get it all at your fingertips, right? So I think if people can really start to tap into it and utilize it and like capitalize on it, the right way, like a lot of people have done with Instagram, with social media, then you can use it as it's a huge asset. And I think like, if you start to really capitalize on it, you're going to be able to find content ideas. And like you said, I feel like at this point, like there's really no excuses not to put out content. There's no excuses, to delay it because you have more information at your fingertips. And it's gotten so easy that it's almost ridiculous that people aren't putting out content these days, I feel like.
Oh, totally, totally. And let me ask you a personal question. How are you doing your prospecting? How are you reaching out to people to get them to basically have a conversation with you about their business? Because I feel like 99.9% of businesses need to be doing this, and not very many are doing it. And if they are, they're not doing it
Yeah.
consistently or successfully. So how are you reaching out to them, and what kind of pushback are you getting when you do reach out?
That's a great question. So a lot of people think, well, I mean, it's kind of a weird business that we're in. So like we do Instagram growth, we help people with engagement. A lot of people like, I mean, there was back then people buying like bots and Russian followers or whatever. So people have this like kind of this idea in the back of their head that like what we do is like fake followers, bots, and stuff like that, which isn't the case. So usually, like if I'm hitting people up either in the DMs on Instagram or if we're running ads and people end up, shooting me a message and hopping on a call, almost like 90% of the time, their biggest concern is like, is this real? Am I going to get like a ton of bots or fake followers? So that's like the biggest skepticism people have. And to answer your first question, I typically just do organic outreach. Like I have my Instagram page, right? And I've had it for like 5, 6 years. Now I used to do prospecting on my page organically. I'd send 40 or 50 DMs a day. But what I saw is that having 10,000 followers, it was okay, but I wouldn't get the response or the conversion that I wanted. So it almost didn't make it worth it. So as I consistently grew my page to like 100K, as I consistently grew my page, I was able to get much higher response rates, higher conversion, so now it's like if I send 40 or 50 messages on my more credible page, right, I'm getting much more responses, and in turn that gets me a lot more business. So we're doing a lot of organic outreach, and that's mixed in with ads, mass DMs, which we could get into, but we're able to generate, $200,000-300,000 in sales each month, just by Instagram alone. So it's a pretty cool tool if you can really capitalize on it, like I said.
All right. So when you talk to a lot of these clients, especially when you're going past that whole idea of it's not a bot, you're not buying followers here. The issue with that is it is a time process, right? It's not an overnight thing. That's the problem with bots and stuff. You
Yeah.
can go from 0 to 10,000 followers overnight, but your credibility's not there. There's no engagement. There's all kinds of stuff. It's just a nice little flex number that you have in your on your
Yep.
profile. but to actually do it correctly, it's going to take some time. So do you get pushback from clients that are, when you're telling them, look, this service that we offer, it's not a one and done. This is an ongoing thing to help you grow your business. What's that conversation like?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think they actually get a lot more comfortable. Like when we explain kind of the process, how it works, and that it does take 3, 4, sometimes even like 2 months, to actually get the full amount of followers. They're kind of like, okay, that makes more sense. Because a lot of times, if you say I'm gonna get you 10,000 followers in 1 or 2 days, it's like, okay, how are you doing
Spam.
that? And making sure it's actually like legit, like seems too good to be true, which usually is, if that's the case, it usually is too good to be true. So we tell them, once we launch the growth, it's more steadily increasing. Like you're not going to get it overnight, like you said. And in addition to that, they're also going to see their engagement increase. Like if you look at any of our packages on our site, we don't just want you to boost up a following and have like zero engagement, because that still looks kind of weird. Then they're kind of like, why aren't these followers? So what we also do, in addition to the followers, what we'll do is we'll actually get them more engagement, more likes, more views, more comments. So that way everything is kind of growing at the same rate, which makes it as organic as possible while still gaining like a good amount of followers.
All right, people always want to know this part, right? How are you doing that? So you're going to help me grow my following. What's the difference between you and every other person who's a digital marketer creating content clips? How are you separating yourself? What's the difference between the posts that you create and the posts that other people create that increase engagement, shares, likes, all that sort of stuff? Comments?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've invested into a ton of different like marketing campaigns, growth, giveaways. I've pretty much done everything you can think of. And what we've seen is that with our strategy, which is mass DMs, you get a much bigger conversion rate. It's a little bit higher quality, and you're not going to get as much drop off. So like if we send out what's called a mass DM, we're going to send your page link, and then like a quick message below that might say something like, hey, go check out Business Bros, their super dope podcast, give them a follow, check out their content. So it's very similar to running ads, which the cool thing is like we can kind of monitor how many or how little we send out. And obviously if people see that, they're not going to want to click and follow and, check out your content unless they're somewhat interested. So that's how we can kind of weed out people who aren't as interested in your stuff. And like even on top of that, like if you're growing at 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 followers, the cool thing is that starts to build this momentum, right? So like with the content that you're putting out, if you start getting more engagement on your content, Instagram, the way the algorithm works is it'll take those posts and it'll blast them out even more, right? Like it'll help you get on the explore page, help you reach more people organically. So we kind of want to become like the catalyst for most people. Point where you can actually start building momentum and bringing in more of like an organic audience, if that makes sense.
So your team is literally sending people DMs, inviting people to listen, to watch, to follow, to be part of your audience. Because I know personally, and anybody can out here and test it. Whenever you send somebody a DM and there's a conversation in the DMs, all of a sudden when they go back to their main page, guess whose content is showing up first, right? Like they at least get a glimpse of whatever it is that you're posting, and then all of a sudden that's your opportunity, or at least that's where the content has an
Yep.
opportunity to really reel those people in. Am I
Yeah,
correct here?
yeah, that's 100% correct. And kind of going back to like what helps us kind of stand out or makes us different, is like we also help with like the guidance. Like we have video trainings that come with the services. We have coaching that comes with the service, because a lot of times if you invest into growth, you might go into like a celebrity campaign, grow to 20K, but then it's like there's no coaching to like how to monetize that, how to actually start bringing in business now that you're at 20K. Or maybe you don't get engagement. So it's like a lot of times these other agencies, they might have one aspect down, but they don't have the engagement portion or press articles or the guidance portion to actually like learn the skills on how to monetize. So we want to kind of give people like the full package, to like crush on Instagram and to monetize. Because our goal at the end of the day is for you to see like an ROI, right? To see a return from investing, whether that's just reaching more people, making a bigger impact, getting more listeners, subscribers. And in some cases, if you're like a coach or a business owner, an entrepreneur, we're going to get you more business, right? We're going to get you more clients. So that makes it like a win-win, right? Like we get, obviously, like we get to help these people, they get more clients. So it creates this win-win relationship, which at the end of the day is, the most fulfilling thing.
It's not always easy to measure an ROI in a marketing space. In the sales space and advertising, it's kind of easier to see, right? You have a click-through rate, you can see exactly what your conversion rate is. You can literally look at the numbers and see the return on investment or the return on that you're putting in. With
Yeah.
this kind of business, it's not as easy to measure that kind of investment. So when people are coming to you, what kind of pushback do you get when they're looking for something more direct like that? I mean, you're kind of saying, we got a time frame here to help grow you. We're going to increase your engagement. You got to learn to kind of use this engagement and turn it around into business and sales. It's kind of hard to sell that ROI. What kind of response do you give them?
No, yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, a lot of times we do get clients, they say like, well, I can get a ton of followers, but how do I know I'm going to get clients from that, right? And like you said, it is hard to measure like the actual like metrics, like because a lot of times what will happen is people will indirectly get business through Instagram. They don't get it directly through Instagram. So basically, what that means is maybe people are browsing real estate agents in the area or whatever your business is. Obviously, especially the younger generation, they're going to go to Google. They're going to especially go to like Instagram, check you out, scroll through, kind of learn about who you are, what you do. So I always tell them, like, if you want to stand out from like every other real estate agent or every other fitness coach or every other podcast, having that first impression is key, right? Because you only have like 3 to 5 seconds to make a good first impression. So if you have 10, 20, 50, 100,000 followers and great engagement and great content, you give off a super dope first impression, you're much more likely to convert them as a client, right? So even if you don't get direct business through Instagram, if you have an ideal client who happens to stumble across your page, which inevitably they will, because Instagram is one of the leading platforms for, just research and all kinds of stuff. So if you can give off a great first impression, that's going to convert them. So that's what I typically will tell them.
That makes sense. Well, let's talk about cost. I noticed that a lot of people in the marketing space don't really list their prices on the website. They're going more for, let's get you into a conversation. Let's sit down and talk about what it is that you, the customer, needs, and then we can kind of develop a package, something around there. And yet, when I actually talk to them, they already have a package in mind that they want to be able to sell these people. Look, you need this full package. You want to have the PR. You want to have the content. You want to have chat. You want to have all these things put into place. What is the process like for working with you so that somebody can kind of get an idea of, what is my investment so I can start calculating my return at some point?
Yeah. So the cool thing with us is like we have services for literally everybody. Like we've helped over 7,000 clients the past 5 years. And the reason we're able to do that is because we don't focus on just like one high ticket package, right? Like we have some packages for like $150 and then we have other ones for $35,000, right? So like, really depending on your goals, what you want to achieve, how big, how fast you want to grow, within the span of 4 months, 5 months, 10 months, we basically have every package you'd need, tailored to what your goals are. So, I mean, you could easily go to the website, check out the packages, but I mean, there's so many different like levels of packages that you almost don't really know where to start. So that's when obviously we would hop on a call with them, ask about them, learn about what their goals are. Cause at the end of the day, we don't have just like a one fit all package, right? For everybody, there's going to be different people with different budgets, different goals. So that's kind of like the benefit of having all these different packages is we can tailor these packages to specific individuals.
I was writing down right now the value of a brand, right? Because you're right. There's different packages. You have anything from 150 to 35,000, and I know there's some entrepreneurs out there thinking 35 grand. Why would I want to spend 35 grand on my own personal brand? And I'm thinking to myself, because you don't understand the value of what a brand actually is. So when a client comes and gives you some pushback and you're like, look, it's going to take this time. You're going to create this following. You're really essentially laying out the value of a brand. How do you get that across to them so they understand that, no matter what happens in this economy, their business, whatever, their brand they can
Yeah.
take with them. They can get fired from a job, but that brand lives on with them. How do you get that across them?
Yeah, well, especially for like the younger generation, I really push like starting a personal brand. Like I tell people it's literally your new resume, it's your new business card. Like if you don't have a solid social media presence, you don't have a solid brand, you are quickly falling behind and you are, losing traction because, like I said, it's basically like this new way to get clients. It's this new way to get new opportunities. I also tell people like it's probably one of the easiest ways to network with some of the biggest, most successful guys in the space. Like I reached out to mega, guys in the entrepreneurship space, where, before obviously before social media, there's no way you'd be able to connect with them unless you yourself made, 10, 20, $50 million. But these days you can just send a DM, it takes, 10 seconds. And you could get them on a podcast, get them on a conversation. You could just, text them right there. So even with networking, like it's massive, right? Like you're obviously going to be able to get bigger, better opportunities, open new doors, get business. But even on top of that, the networking that goes on in social media with Instagram specifically, I mean, like it's priceless because I mean, you've obviously heard the saying, your network is your net worth, right? So, having like a solid network is key, and social media is the way that you can go about it pretty much flawlessly, which is pretty cool.
We've heavily talked today about making sure that the clients have their avatar in place, that they know exactly who they're talking to when it comes to creating content. So that's kind of the question I'm going to ask you. You're literally helping people build brands. And for you to say, I help anybody, that's kind of broad, right? So who are you targeting right now? Who are you going after? Maybe in a particular niche, a particular vertical, an industry? What are you looking for as far as your ideal client?
Yeah, that's a great point. So like I think for my content specifically, so to kind of clarify, like with my content, I help a very specific individual, which is like an 18 to 25-year-old, male entrepreneur, in the US or in the UK. And the reason for that is because I obviously was like a young entrepreneur who just wanted some guidance, wanted to figure out like, how to make it on social media, how to build a brand. So being able to help other young guys in that space, I think is key. And then going to like the products, right? Like I have a partner, his name is Dre, and he basically says like, don't niche down, like don't like just stick to one person. Cause he says like, if you, stick to like only helping, rich entrepreneurs who can afford like a $10,000 package, then you miss this other person who's like a smaller business or a small like fitness, trainer who maybe can't afford that. So the cool thing with social media branding specifically is like pretty much everybody needs a personal brand. It's like we've helped anyone from rappers, artists, entrepreneurs, coaches, podcasters, business owners, like the list goes on and on. So I think when it comes to business, like with the actual brand building, everybody needs a brand. So that's the reason why we're able to serve so many different people. But as far as content and your own personal brand, I think you do need to have a very specific avatar in mind, because then you're going to be able to basically almost like guide your content towards this one thing, and that just builds a lot more consistency and like flow to your page, because you don't want to just post like a fitness picture one day and then like you help finance the next day, and then you do like farming the next day. You kind of want to make sure it's specific on your personal brand, so that this guy is the guy that helps my type of situation specifically, and that's going to build a more loyal following, if that makes sense.
Totally does. Got to get there. Got to get there. I mean, and that's why we have different tiers in your packaging, right? Because you want to be able
Yeah.
to help multiple levels based on where you're at. So I like that on the sales side, especially. Let me ask you, dude. We said earlier that the problem with some entrepreneurs who want to get started is they don't have any content, and so you literally were on the show today, and I'm wondering my testimonial question here, if you have clients that are looking to get started in creating some content and they need a little bit of help, what was your experience like on the Business Bros today, literally creating content that you can turn around and repurpose?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing with like being on podcasts here specifically is like you have the cool like layout. Like I've been on like other Zoom, calls, and like you guys have like a really aesthetically pleasing brand. So I say like that's the first thing. And like with the conversation that we've had back and forth. Like, it's just a little harder, like staring at the camera, like having to like kind of almost memorize the script, like what your topic is. But when you just let it flow for like 30 minutes, for like an hour, you might not even realize it, but you just created like 5, 10, sometimes 15 reels, right? 15 small pieces of short form content. So you basically just bashed a piece of content by having a conversation. So I think that's the super cool thing about it, is it saves you time. It's fun. You get to connect with people, like yourself. So I would say, if you're looking to start creating content, dude, like you need to get on podcasts. You need to connect with people, even if you're just gonna, chill out with your friend who's also interested in business or in your space. Maybe just have a conversation with him, because like I said, going back to the Business Bros podcast, like you can have, great conversations for 30 minutes, an hour, and you're gonna be able to take little snippets of those pieces of value and create 10 reels just right there, and then you got your foot in the door with creating content.
And ladies and gents, that's exactly what Joe and I both do. So Joe, before we head out, man, you've dropped a lot of knowledge. A lot of people probably didn't even know half the stuff that you're sharing with them. A couple little Instagram hacks to help grow their Instagram. And if they want to reach out with you, find out what you have to offer, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I mean, Instagram is definitely my main page. So just at Real Joe McCarthy on Instagram. You can check out our agency, growthisagency.com. And yeah, other than that, feel free to shoot me a DM. I respond to everybody. I'm always willing to help. And yeah, that's probably like the main place to find me.
That's it, ladies and gents. It's just Real Joe McCarthy on IG. Make sure you guys reach out, check out some of that stuff that's going on. Look, I always tell you, I've learned, there's always mentors out there that you can learn from, right? But
Yeah.
part of it is learning directly on what they're telling you. The other part is watch what they're doing, because what they're doing is a lesson in and of itself. And you can go to Joe's page, check out this type of content that he's creating. It gives you a great idea as to what you can do to help grow your own social media pages. And then he also gave you some nice little hacks on today's episode. So you should be sliding into some DMs here, at least on a day-to-day basis, so you can start increasing your engagement as well. Joe, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I want to make sure I give you a couple seconds here at the end. Any final thoughts before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like the biggest thing with my brand, you'll see the consistency is with one of my messages, just take action, right? Like I said, a lot of people get stuck in their head with like what kind of stuff to put out, who should I help? Why should I help them? At the end of the day, taking action is the easiest way to learn fast, to grow fast. Versus reading a ton of books. Like you can get a ton of knowledge, but if you don't implement it, it's not going to matter. You can listen to this podcast or all like 100 or 200 episodes of your podcast, and if you don't implement stuff from that, it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, taking action is the biggest key. So yeah, last final thought is just go out there and make something happen.
Oh man, you can try to catch up and listen to all the episodes. You are episode 1102, my friend. So if you want to talk about consistency, that is the key. You're going to find your voice. You're going to find your messaging. You're going to get consistent in creating content. And that is going to be the little catalyst that you need to help your business grow. Joe, thank you very much for coming on the show, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz